friends, this video on life processes part 27 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now, based on this systole and diastole, we can also understand the concept of blood pressure. Many of you would have heard that some elderly person in your family might be having problems of high BP. Often our grandfather or people of that age say that I am a patient of BP. I generally have high blood pressure. So what do we mean by blood pressure? So blood pressure is nothing but the ratio of the systolic pressure to the diastolic pressure. That means this systole and diastole which we were talking about. So the ventricular systole by the ventricular diastole. So the pressure is measured at the systole condition, and then the pressure is also measured at the diastole condition, and the ratio of these two gives the blood pressure. So you would have often heard that people saying that my blood pressure is 130 by 70. Somebody say that my blood pressure is 160 by 90. So what is that 160 by 90? What is that 130 by 70? So that 130, that is the numerator, is nothing but the systolic pressure, and the denominator is the diastolic pressure. So here the systolic pressure which we are talking about is the ventricular systole. Now, as we saw that ventricles are the pumping chambers, so they send blood to the body, right? So here we will see how do we measure blood pressure. Now, average blood pressure for a healthy adult is 120 by 80 mm of mercury. So how do we measure pressure? The unit of pressure. So we often use the unit Pascal, or we often use this mercury column as a reference to measure pressure. So for the normal blood pressure is 120 by 80 for an adult human, and the instrument which is used to measure blood pressure is called as sphygmomanometer. So this is the instrument which is used to measure blood pressure. I am not sure if you have ever been to a hospital to get your blood pressure checked, or if you would have ever seen somebody else getting their blood pressure checked. Have you seen that instrument? How does it look like? There will be a stethoscope, there will be a band, and then there will be a box which will show the reading of the pressure. So what will the doctor generally do? He will tie the band on your arm. So this is your arm normally. Now what will the doctor do? There will be a cloth like thing which he will wrap on your hand, and he will wrap it extremely tightly, and then he will start loosening it gradually. This is what he does. Now why does he do so? What does he understand from that? So let us have a look into that. So here, this is showing the flow of blood through the arteries, right? Now when this band is pressed extremely tightly on your hand, what happens? It is seen that the pressure of the blood flow increases to a very high extent, and then with the help of the stethoscope which the doctors carry, they will be able to hear the sound of the blood flow, because when it is extremely tight, in that case the blood is almost unable to flow through the artery. So as a result, a very high pressure is created at this point, and because of that high pressure, the sound of the blood flow becomes audible to the doctor, right? So at this peak pressure, so the blood flow through arteries at this peak pressure is due to the ventricular systole, and the pressure which is shown by that instrument at this point is recorded as the systolic pressure. So the doctors say that the systolic pressure is 120 mm of mercury, right? Now what does the doctor do? Now the doctor will hear the sound. So the sound will be at its peak at this point. So he will hear the sound with the help of this stethoscope. Now what will he do? He will slightly start loosening this band. Now as he starts loosening this band, what is seen? It is seen that the blood starts flowing through the artery, and also the sound which he was able to hear, that sound starts becoming dim. So the sound becomes faded, and finally it reaches a point where the sound finally stops. So the point where the sound stops, at that point whatever pressure is displayed by the instrument, that is measured as the diastolic pressure. So this systolic pressure divided by the diastolic pressure gives us the blood pressure. So the word blood pressure, what does it mean? It means the pressure exerted by the blood on the walls of the blood vessels. So that is known as blood pressure. It is the literal meaning of the term. Pressure exerted by blood on the walls of the blood vessels. And this is how we measure blood pressure. So if you want to see it experimentally, you can just go to a doctor and get your blood pressure checked. So you can understand how it actually happens. They will wrap a cloth on your arm and then they'll make it extremely tight. So when they make it extremely tight and hear the sound of your heart with the stethoscope, they can hear the beating of the heart. So when the sound is at its peak, that is the time when the pressure is at its peak, and it happens due to the ventricular systole. What is ventricular systole? What happens when the ventricular systole is there? That means the ventricles contract. So that means the blood is flowing out of the ventricle. Right? Now as you start relaxing, what happens? The sound fades away and gradually it reaches a point where there is no sound at all. At that point, we again note the pressure, and that pressure is the diastolic pressure. So this is how the blood pressure is measured. So with this, we ended our discussion on the functioning of the human heart, on the discussion of the human circulatory system. So let us have a quick review of the circulatory system of human beings. So the blood comes into the right auricle. So which blood comes into the right auricle? The deoxygenated blood. So see, whichever has this blue outline, that shows deoxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood from different body parts come into the right auricles through superior and inferior vena cava. What is vena cava? They are the veins. As I said, the capillaries join together to form veins. Venules join together to form veins, and veins further join together to form vena cava. So these vena cava take the deoxygenated blood to the right auricle. From right auricle, it goes into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve, RT. From right ventricle, it goes to the pulmonary artery through the pulmonary valve, and from pulmonary artery, it goes to the lungs. Now, lungs is the place where the deoxygenated blood is disposed of and oxygenated blood is given out. So, the oxygenated blood enters the left auricle. From left auricle, it goes to the left ventricle. From left ventricle, the oxygenated blood goes to the aorta, which is the largest artery of the body. From aorta, it goes to the rest of the body. So this is an overview of the human circulatory system. So what do we see? That inside the heart, we have the 4 different chambers and the 4 different types of valves and the blood vessels, which together play a very, very important role and lead the circulatory system of human beings. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.